Reflecting on the season of making the case, I think the first word that comes to mind is just how informative the experience was. I come to this experience as a journalist with over a decade covering the LGBTQ community from both a policy, political perspective, and also from a cultural perspective. And I think one of the most incredible things was being able to dig into these cases on a really granular level. One of the things that came up in our episode about Lambda Legal's case with the Iowa Supreme Court fighting for marriage equality, this was a case that was filed back in 2004 by Lambda Legal. I was able to interview attorney Camilla Taylor about her work there. What we talked about in that episode was that when you're part of the national media, oftentimes you're really flattening. I think the depth and nuance of what has happened behind the scenes in these cases before the decision comes out. And so, in that particular case, a lot of national anchors, and I think the newsroom I was in at the time, were very much like, why Iowa? What a strange choice, or what an unusual, unexpected choice. And one of the coolest things was talking to Camilla about how that was actually incredibly calculated. And there was just so much expertise and research and strategy that went into picking Iowa and the specificity of having that case in that state based on the potential for a victory. And of course, it was this amazing unanimous victory in favor of these same sex couples and their families. These attorneys, just the degree of expertise and brilliance and the way that they were thinking about these cases from both, obviously the legal ins and outs, but then this really human side, also learning about the plaintiffs who really reflect the law in so many different ways. And how just, I think in order to do impact litigation, you need to have people whose stories both resonate, but then also show really clearly on paper why what's going on is a clear form of discrimination. So the experience was both really informative and incredible. And then I also think on a personal level, really moving because every time I was talking to these attorneys about progress that they had gotten for LGBTQ plus people and people living with HIV, I was also thinking it was hard not to think about how that impacts me on a personal level as a queer person, as someone who is married to a woman, as someone who I feel like I owe a debt to a lot of these attorneys for the work that they've done. So I was also just constantly thinking like, oh my gosh, this person that I'm talking to, this case that they worked on for so many years also has a really direct through line to my experiences and not having to endure discrimination, whether that's in my relationship or eventually if I want social security benefits in all of these really specific ways.